Hello and welcome to Flippin' Through the Internet's #1 Mad Magazine news, review, and interview channel. And today we have an interview as the rechristening of this live broadcast after taking the month of June off. We're coming in with a guest interview. Before we get started with that, I will please remind you, hit like, hit subscribe, and hey, leave comments or something. Anyway, if you want to support me in another way, comments and subscriptions and thumbs up being the best way, you can go to patreon.com/flippinthrough. That will bring you to my Patreon page. You get some awesome stickers. They're beautiful. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Dalton Vaughn helped me design them. So that's he works for Mad, or worked for Mad. Anyway, sorry, Dalton. I didn't mean to bring up bad memories. But I do want to say thank you to those people who are currently supporting me on patreon.com/flippinthrough. Shane Buckley, Bobby Weigel, Cam Hayden, Ed Meisinger, Doug Guilford, Rob Wilson, Rod Mead Sperry, Andrew Goldfarb, Casey Ori, and Kyle Bridget. Fellas, thank you for the support, and I hope I can keep on earning it. Before we get started, though, I also want to say what's up to Kyle Bridget. He's in the audience right now. Sketchy Works. See, this is what happens. Whenever people come over, they start showing off and they start making jokes about soup and stuff. Sketchy Works, welcome. Great to see you. The novice aquarist. Let's go. Indeed, let us go. Taco Ghost. You guys, come on. There's guests over, all right? Harvey Esquire. I do anything for wonton soup. Harvey Esquire, I got a notification that he subscribed. Thank you so much. Waffles? Well, at least, come on. I don't even know how to respond to you people anymore. Without further ado, I want to welcome our guest, filmmaker, the creator of the Mad Magazine documentary, When We Went Mad, Alan Bernstein. Hello, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Oh, look, you got in on the fun of confusing me with comments.
Okay, yeah. Let's do this.
Anyway, so for those, I'm actually we talked a little bit before this live broadcast about like my Mad collection and how I've been a Mad reader forever. And then I got serious about Mad collecting recently. And through becoming serious about Mad collecting, I heard about your documentary. So why don't you kind of just start off, tell us a little bit about yourself and this project that you have.
I too am a Mad collector, a Mad fan. I've been collecting Mad since the age of 6, which is far too many years ago now. Basically, as far as the movie goes, I work in film production as a career, and I kept, quite honestly, waiting for a Mad documentary to come out with the interviews of all the usual gang of idiots, and it wasn't happening. And in the meantime, they were passing away, and so I thought, if anyone's going to do it, I've got to do this. So it started completely out of pocket. We got the first few interviews, and once it got too big, too unwieldy to do on my own, we did a Kickstarter fundraiser, and we were able to gather several usual gang of idiots, and which was terrific. The biggest holdup for us has been trying to get celebrity interviews. We always felt from the beginning that it's great to hear from the creators, the artists, writers, and editors. We thought it was very important to hear from people who were influenced by Mad. And as much as my mom might like to see me being interviewed talking about Mad. I don't know that many others would. So it was always a question of trying to get, some celebrities to sit down with us. And so that's been one of the longest, one of the biggest reasons why we're where we are with the documentary in terms of time taken to get this completed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I want to get in. I have a lot of questions about the documentary, but
Sure.
before I get into that, I am very curious about. You said that you started reading Mad at age 6.
Age 6, yeah. I mean, the getting deep into the weeds story of it is we were visiting family in California. I'm based in Michigan. I live in Michigan. We were visiting family in California in the summer of 1976. And we were popping into a drugstore just to, I don't know, get a soda or something like that. And I started looking at the magazine rack, hoping to get like a coloring book or something. And there was an issue of Mad there. Super special number 18, for those wondering. And really just thumbing through it, I thought, oh, this looks interesting. I have no idea what this is. Can I get it? And my parents, I have to believe they knew what Mad Magazine was, but they didn't, bat an eye. I'm sure if you want it, go right ahead. And I started reading it. And a couple months later, going through local drugstore, there was another issue there. And it's really kind of the first time I made a connection that things can continue in the publishing world. It wasn't just one coloring book and that's all you need. And, so, oh, really, there's another one. And so it just kind of grew from there, like any kind of addiction does. You get that itch and you're like, oh, well, one more and that's all I need. That'll be fine. And then over time, you start to, you're reading it and you're starting to get the humor. You're starting to understand what is going on in these pages. And the more you read the magazine, the more you kind of adopt or be consumed by the Mad Magazine culture. And that's what happened. So,
was there, I mean, like, if you can think back to that 6-year-old mind, was there like one feature in it that you felt especially drawn to?
Well, it was two, and for me, it was the quick hitting Don Martin and Spy versus Spy. I don't recall, I read, but reading reading the articles in Mad at that time for me wasn't it hadn't caught on right away. So it was the visual. It was, like I said, it was Don Martin and it was Spy versus Spy. And then you flip a few more pages, and oh, there's another Don Martin and another Spy versus Spy. Who are these characters? And that's that was the first draw to it. And then the fold in. I didn't understand what they were saying, what Al Jaffe was saying in the fold in. It was talking about something that 6-year-old me had no idea, but I thought it was a really cool concept of how a picture within a picture could be created. And and then like anyone else, you go back and file through it again and go, wait, there are little drawings in the corners. What is? Oh, well, look at that. That's kind of interesting. And
I think Mad has like a rereadability that other magazines, I mean, perhaps other magazines do have them, but that rereadability as a child is so amazing about it. And like, I was drawn to the Mad Look At, because it's like, I don't have to read at all. This is great. I don't even have to read sound effects.
I mean, I kind of say it with I kind of feel slightly embarrassed to say that I too, the visual gags are the ones that drew me to it. And it was later on that the written word that I got, look at the wit and the strength of comedy that the writers had. But for me, like I said, it was the visual early on. And that's what I would always go to first. is the stuff that didn't challenge me right away.
Yeah.
And like you said, the readability. Okay, I got my quick hit. Now I'm gonna go back and start reading this stuff. And I'm sure this is the case for a lot of people, especially when you're starting at 6, is you don't get half the humor of the written word. And it's only after you start reading it more, or you start asking questions of your parents. What is this Vietnam that they keep talking about? Who is this Nixon fellow that they seem to really have it in for?
Yeah.
Fortunately, my parents were cool about it, and they were willing to go along and answer those questions.
I was kind of curious. Like you had said that your parents, you have to believe that they knew what Mad Magazine was.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's, how a lot of parents will just, their kid says, "Can I go on YouTube?" or "Can I watch whatever show?" And it's like, yeah, fine. I get the gist of what it is, but the content in it, maybe they aren't as familiar with.
I certainly don't think so. At no point did they ever give any indication that they knew what was in the between the covers of Mad. They just, and thinking about it now, I don't know that they ever owned up to knowing what Mad was. They just were just, you know what, you're reading, we're cool with that. We, obviously it wasn't forbidden enough for them to turn it away. It's not like I reached up from the blocked off section and said, "What is this Playboy? I'm interested in this." I'm
a boy.
Yeah,
and I enjoy playing.
And I like to play. This is perfect. I could easily see my parents at that point saying, "Let's just put that back there," and then perhaps my dad kind of taking it. But no, they never had a problem with Mad, and I've never asked the question. It's actually, I should ask that question. Beyond what you knew of Mad, meaning that it existed and it had this cultural kind of significance. Did you know anything about it? Did you ever read it? I never asked them that.
Yeah.
So
I do. I'm going to actually hop over to the comments early on.
Okay.
There are a few that sort of stood out to me, and I want to address them. First off, Kyle Bridget, I started at 6'2", while visiting family. And then we have Wendy Gaines.
Hi, Wendy.
All right. I don't want to butcher your last name, Wendy, so I apologize. I'm just going to Bucci. All right. Let's see. Oh, look at
now. Can you, looking at Wendy Gaines Bucci, can you have any idea as to what her connection to Mad might be?
Is she a daughter of William Gaines?
That is correct.
Hey, and this is actually
we have Mad royalty listening in on this. So.
Yeah, holy smokes! Well, Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. That's Tom Richmond. Every once in a while, will stop in the comment section, and I always get very nervous when he appears. Because it's I'm a little starstruck still. Here we go. He's talking about maturing into the lighter side, Patrick. You should take note. I'm not a fan of the lighter side. How do you feel, Alan, about the lighter side of?
I always found it hit or miss. Just between you and me.
Yeah.
There were some of the jokes that I thought were just fantastic. It's like any kind of humor. Some of it all works. Sometimes it doesn't. I always read it, but it was never a favorite. But I did enjoy it. There were some that I just think they are as ingrained in my memory as any other Mad article. So.
All right. People get upset at me sometimes for my my harsh views on Dave Berg, which I don't believe that they're very harsh at all. I do I like him quite a bit, especially his earlier artwork. I thought it was amazing, and but yeah, it's
I'll tell you a couple things that I learned in interviewing. Drew Friedman was a huge fan, or is a huge fan of the lighter side of. He was highly complimentary of it, and expressed how valuable it was to him growing up. And Mad writer Stan Hart hated it. Yeah, I don't want to quote. I mean, but I got the impression that he thought it was unfunny and dribble. So
yeah.
I found that interesting, and his honestness and his honesty and just his feelings on it. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
to each his own.
Yeah, well, and that's a great thing about Mad, is that it had such a wide range of humor. Like, it was all mad, but it was
and it's easy to dismiss Mad on a broad level of it was a satire magazine.
Yeah,
but each issue, I mean, if you want to get into the minutia like you and I love to do with it, it really covered all the bases of humor. It had the juvenile, quick, silliness.
Yeah.
And then it had this true satirical commentary on whatever era that issue took place in. And to me, that's part of the brilliance of it. And I never asked Al Feldstein, and I don't recall if I asked John Ficarra, both the former editors of Mad, if that was the intent from the get-go, especially with Al Feldstein. Did you intend on having this broad, cover your bases humor style magazine, or did it just, these ideas kind of fall into place? Don Martin showed up at your doorstep. Well, he's funny. We got to use him. Oh, Stan Hart and Larry Siegel want to write for us, and look at what they're writing. Well, we want to go with that too. We don't want to turn that away. Yeah. So I don't know. It would have been a good question that I wish I had asked them.
Part of this show is like going through every single issue. Like, that's I do the live streams, but once a week I'd read a new issue, and it is such an interesting time capsule as far as like pop culture, seeing the movies or television shows that, were a hit at that time. Seeing that the political references, whether it's like, talking about the latest war or, lampooning whatever president. And I guess it goes to rereadability again. I mean, like, decades later, it's wonderful, and it's still really funny.
I agree. I agree with an asterisk. There are many people who I've spoken to about Mad, some who have worked for Mad, who, when you talk about the different eras, they all love and respect whatever era they grew up reading Mad, but they also don't hesitate in saying they don't hold up. Mm-hmm. And I'm on the fence with that. I can see that. I completely understand that. But from my personal perspective, I started reading Mad in 1976. When you become a Mad collector, that involves collecting the issues prior to 1976. And what was happening in 1958 really had no relativity to my life in 1976, but I found the magazines hilarious. I loved those issues. I don't, so to a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old back issue of Mad held up. Mm-hmm. I could see a 50-year-old reader looking back going, it's not as funny as when I read it. Well, of course not. You were 10 when you first read it.
And now you're cynical and old.
And now you're cynical and old. And you've heard that, and the jokes. You read the jokes. They will never be as fresh as that day when you first discovered that joke. And so I get it. But for the most part, I think they do hold up.
Yeah, that's interesting that that idea that they don't, because it's just I guess like as time goes on, they become just more esoteric, right? Like if you're not familiar with, the sitcom Nurses from 1954, you're
Right.
not going to get the humor of that. I understand that, but all of the other aspects of it, I think that the humor is pretty solid for most of them.
Yeah, and you can obviously say the humor back then was, in many regards, lighter. It wasn't as coarse as mad humor is now.
Yeah.
And that's not to say one is better than the other, although many would say, "Oh, I liked it better then. Now it's just And that, okay, again, to each his own.
Yeah.
But unless you're talking about a specific article from 1974 that was commenting on a specific moment in time that bears little relevance now, you'd have to go on Google and what was this joke about? I get, like, that's to what you were saying, you might not know the specifics of the joke, but it's still, oh, I see what they're talking about. Now I get the joke. Now I get what they were getting at. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So
I want to shift into the documentary, because you brought up Drew Friedman.
Yeah.
And so he's somebody that you interviewed during it. Who else did you have the pleasure of interviewing from Mad Magazine?
All right, so I'm going to go. This is off the top of my head.
Okay, I'm going to take some notes in case I have questions.
Okay, so let's start. The first interview I did for the documentary was Al Feldstein. And I actually interviewed him twice. We interviewed Sergio. We interviewed Jack Davis. We interviewed Don Edwing. We interviewed John Ficarra. We interviewed Joe Raiola. We interviewed Charlie Cadu. We interviewed, again, it's at the top of my head here because there's so many. Teresa Burns Parkhurst. I love her stuff. I just love her stuff. We interviewed Stan Hart, Larry Siegel, Al Jaffe, Doug Guilford. You're watching. Type in some names. Mort Drucker. Doug Guilford and I drove to Mort Drucker and Drucker's house and set up our cameras in his living room and interviewed him there. Lou Silverstone, one of my favorite Mad writers. We interviewed in his living room.
How about Jacobs?
Frank Jacobs, we interviewed in his living room. We interviewed Tom Cook, one of the all-time great Mad writers who doesn't today get, I think, the acknowledgement that he certainly deserves. Larry Siegel. Mm-hmm. We did three trips to New York. We interviewed Nick Meglin. We did 3 trips to New York. One, we parked ourselves at the Society of Illustrators and had a bunch of artists and writers show up. Harry North, we interviewed. Dick DiBartolo, we interviewed. And like I said, on that trip, we actually drove to some of the houses and set up there. And then we did a couple interviews in the Mad offices in New York. Actually, I think I did 3. We did a main one. Peter Cooper. Thank you, Doug. We did a main one. Doug and I were in New York. We spent 2 days interviewing everyone in the Mad offices. Paul Coker, Irving Schild. Man, it was so good to meet him and interview him. To me, such an iconic figure of Mad.
Yeah.
In his work. And I just want to meet this guy. I want to interview this guy. His story needs to be told. And then we did a couple follow-up interviews. I interviewed at the Mad offices Gilbert Gottfried, Frank Santopadre, who has written for Mad. I actually went to New York the week before Mad shut its doors
Mm.
and got, I don't want to call it an exit interview, but I sat down with Sam Viviano, so I interviewed him twice. Joe Raiola I interviewed twice, and there's got to be a couple more, but we missed Richard Williams. Thank you, Doug. We missed Bob Clark by a couple months. He unfortunately passed away, I believe it was March, and we were in New York in July, so we just missed him. Yeah. We really tried to interview Paul Peter Porges, but he just wasn't in good enough health to be interviewed. We were really close to being able to do that, and that was unfortunate that we missed that. We tried to interview John Caldwell, and he was nearly on board, but I don't know if he just couldn't make the interview, but now we've lost the opportunity to interview him since he's no longer with us.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a big chunk of it.
I mean, that's like
Desmond Devlin. I see your comment there, Doug. And Arnie Kogan.
Yeah. And
Jay Kogan, Arnie's son, Jay, who actually is credited with writing an article for Mad. But he also he wrote for The Simpsons. I believe he wrote the very first Treehouse of Terror.
Oh.
And he's had a great career in writing and executive producing shows. So we interviewed Nick Meglin's son, Chris, who at the time he was a teacher, and it was kind of cool to get an insight of an educator who not only read Mad but grew up as the son of Nick Meglin. So yeah.
I mean, that you guys got so many people. It's like,
I mean,
amazing.
Yes, because it was imperative to get and Tom Bunk. We interviewed Tom Bunk.
Yeah.
Like I said, Paul Coker, Tom Richmond. We flew a lot of. It was really kind of cool. We flew as many people in as we could to New York for this big interview session. Mad treated us so kindly for when we came in, and it was just a great experience. And as I was getting at it, why wouldn't we interview as many people as we could?
Yeah.
Yes, if we were to string together every great soundbite, this would be a 7-hour documentary, and I'd be perfectly fine with that. But I understand why Netflix might be opposed. Yeah. So, but that being said, let's get as many voices as we can, because they all have a story to tell. They all have their. Lenny Brenner. We interviewed Lenny Brenner.
Oh, nice.
Which was just fantastic. So it was
Lenny Brenner being the model in so many famous Irving Schild photographs. The guy with just the goatee, right? Like no mustache or anything.
Yeah, the goatee back then. His nickname was the Beard. The Beard. Yeah. He was really cool, and he sat down for us and gave an interview that I don't know that many other people got a chance to hear his story. So it was fantastic.
Was there somebody that you did interview? Was there one that stood out to you as just especially informative or rewarding, having had the conversation?
I'll answer that in a couple ways. From a fan perspective, I really did my best to not be the fanboy. We really truly were there for a reason, to get these interviews. And I didn't want to be the Chris Farley. Remember that time when you drew that fold in? That was great. I didn't want to do that. And to be perfectly honest, after each day of interviewing, I'd kind of look back, and it was like one of those. I just sat down with Al Jaffe I just had a conversation with Al Jaffe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was afterwards that it kicked in, like, holy cow. In a weird way, to really kind of get to the core of your question, it was the folks like Lenny Brenner. It was the folks like Irving Schild, Stan Hart, people whose names I've known since I was 6 years old and have, 8 times a year, I would be having my conversation with them, seeing their work and their names ingrained in my my memories. And being a Mad fan for all those years, I've read all the books on Mad, the Frank Jacobs, The Mad World of William M. Gaines, all the interviews that would show up. By the time I was 17 or whatever, I could count on one hand how many times I watched 60 Minutes, and one of those was when they went to Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
But all of those interviews and all of those books talked to, rightfully so, the big guys, Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein, and to get to hear the stories of everyone else who were right there. They not only were they right there, they are Mad Magazine. They are the people who are Mad Magazine. So to hear their stories, what was incredible, because it was from their perspective, not from the perspective of the folks who have told their stories a million times. And so that was great.
Yeah. I especially the writers, it seems as though they can be forgotten. It's like Mad Magazine, like all comics, it's like it is a visual medium,
right?
And they had like some of those more magazine article type things earlier on, but some of my favorite gags, really the funny part was written, and it was just demonstrated to me visually.
So one of the interesting stories that was relayed to me by Larry Siegel was when back in the early days of his tenure at Mad, he learned that the artists were getting paid more than the writers for the article. And as I understand it, Bill Gaines made the argument, well, the art, it's a visual medium. It's the readers are looking at these illustrations. And Larry pointed out, well, we submit pieces all the time, and not everything is bought, but we still have to sit and generate those ideas.
Yeah.
Whereas the artist is given an assignment. We need you to draw the Mad takeoff on Star Wars, and the artist goes and does it. Well, in the meantime, that artist has submitted their assigned piece, and we very well may have sent in 15 ideas.
Yeah.
And are getting paid for one. And Bill Gaines, well, you got a point. So from that point on, artists and writers were paid the same.
Oh, wow.
So I think that story generally kind of ties into what you're getting at. You kind of still think of the visual. You open it up and there it is. The visual is right in front of you, and then you secondary becomes the words. So I get what you're saying there.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I when I have to like rattle off, like if you said name 10 people from Mad, all 10 of those people are probably going to be artists, and not to say that I don't appreciate the writers, but it's like those are the ones that stick in my mind more.
Well, they do, and there could be one of the reasons is that they sign their name generally on their piece of artwork, and so everyone gets their byline, everyone gets their artist and writer. But writers don't sign their name to their articles. So, I truly think that's one of the big reasons why.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that, Mad is a visual presentation.
Yeah. Sean Montgomery had a question. And I just wanted to just jump on this now.
Okay, I'm looking at the comments too as you talk. Go ahead.
So the doc is coming out this year, maybe. I commented in I contributed to the Kickstarter in 2013. I think.
Well, you did. You did contribute in 2013, and yes, it is 8 years later. I am so very aware of that, and it weighs on me regularly. Yes, as I am of the understanding, one of the things I did in order to get the film out was to seek a production company who has a good track record in documentaries. And so we've teamed up with Chassis Media, which is owned by comedian Adam Carolla. And his company has put out many really cool documentaries. And so we're working with them to get this done. And their charge was to get the celebrity interviews. And so in wrangling these people, that took a bunch of time. We, for all intents and purposes, like many other people, lost a year due to COVID. But we're gearing up, and we are still editing. We're basically putting everyone's input together and coming up with the best edit that we possibly can. And that being said, their goal is to have it done this year.
Awesome.
So
when you say like the Chassis Media, they were
chassis. Think of the automobile, a chassis.
All right. Thank you. Those things always help me so much.
Yes. Yeah.
So you said their charge was getting the celebrity interviews. So have you done all of the celebrity interviews?
So maybe.
All right.
One of the things that we've learned in this edit is that we want to get more diversity in the interviews. Yeah. Both from a gender diversity to anything that can help make it look less like a like a bunch of old white guys talking about Mad Magazine. Yeah. So while we have a great collection, I mean, they interviewed Bryan Cranston, Howie Mandel, Judd Apatow. We've interviewed Weird Al. We've interviewed Gilbert Gottfried. So we've got some terrific, really good interviews. This was the exact reason why we needed to wait before we said we're done with this, to get these interviews. We are hoping to get a couple more, just to broaden the base, so to speak. Yeah. But in the meantime, we're also getting this movie down to, reasonable length, hour and a half, hour, 35 minutes or so. Yeah. So that's where we are. Excellent. I just spent 8 hours prior to this interview working on the edit. So and it is a living object. It is still alive and well, and despite its ripe old age of gestating for 8 years, it is still going to happen. Yeah. And I really think people are going to enjoy it. I love watching this every single day. I love hearing these guys talk about Mad, and I think they tell it very well. I think we put it together very well. Well, and just thinking too about Frank Jacobs we lost this year recently. I think the previous year we lost Mort Drucker. So having so many of these voices captured and then being able to share that out is going to be
It's going to be wonderful. I mean, yeah, and I'm extremely excited for it because, when I started the channel, it was just me like reading the Mad magazines, and then Mort Drucker died,
Yep.
and I thought, you know what somebody should do? Somebody should interview people from Mad. Obviously, not realizing that somebody has already done that, but and like having conversations like this with you, with Doug Guilford, with Bill Morrison, just hearing voices
Bill
from.
Morrison we interviewed. We interviewed Grant Geisman. So
Oh,
that's
excellent.
those just
Yeah, but like having that all together in one spot where somebody can like sit down and consume this and get all of these stories together is invaluable.
It is. It is. And so between all of that, and quite frankly, as it has taken this long, the Mad story keeps changing.
Yeah.
So we thought we had an ending to this documentary, and then Mad moved to California. Okay, well, let's go to New York and interview some of the guys again and get their take on this. Okay. Let's interview Bill Morrison and get his take on being the new editor of Mad.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's go edit this together and make this all work again. Oh, wait, what? Mad is only doing reprints now? Okay, well, that kind of adds a wrinkle to it that we need to talk about. So let's work with it. So I can't use those as excuses as to why it's taken this long, but they have become integral parts of the Mad story that has to be dealt with, and as a result, it has added time to the production. But yeah, I think I kind of forgot what you originally asked.
I don't know that I asked anything.
Okay.
But
we do. But we have that collection of interviews that you are so hoping to hear. And,
yeah.
And like I said, we've got everyone. I've really made it. I've really made it a goal to get everyone who we've interviewed to talk about it. We interviewed Dave Croatto, who was associate editor. We interviewed Jacob Lambert, who was associate editor in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, we if they were willing to sit down in front of our camera and they had a pulse, we wanted to interview them.
Yeah.
So,
and I want to. Sean has another great question. Will there be a theatrical release or straight to streaming? And then will backers get outtakes or a longer cut? Will there be a Snyder cut type?
the Justice League. When we went to Justice League, the 4-hour tape. I don't know the answer to theatrical release. Holy cow, would that be terrific? Chassis is working really hard to get this to streaming, which is really where the model is now.
Yeah.
Whether or not we can have special screenings in various locales, I am all for it and would love. I'm a filmmaker. I would love to see my final product on the big screen. Will backers get access to outtakes and a longer cut? The best way to answer that is yes, but I don't want it to be just for backers. Many backers invested or gave to Kickstarter with the intention of getting a Blu-ray or a DVD. That tells you how long this has been in production. DVD, what's a DVD? But I would love to throw in, extended interviews. I don't know if it'll be an extended cut where the documentary, or if it's, hey, to hear 45 minutes more of Jack Davis, here's the menu for that. Either way, the interviews I love hearing them. I love hearing them talk about it. Yeah. And some of them, I mean, I asked Lenny Brenner questions of like, how did you make it? How did you make an issue of Mad?
Yeah.
And what do you use rubber cement? Do you cut things out and glue? I mean, that is really, really inside baseball type questions. But I'd like to think if I'm interested, maybe 3 other people on the planet would be interested in hearing that. And so hopefully we can put all that stuff in a some kind of accessible way for people to view it. Maybe it's just an online thing. I don't know, but I think that kind of answers your questions. I want everyone to be able to see as much of their stuff as they can.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that they don't watch the extra stuff and go, well, that should have been in the documentary. Why didn't you use that quote in the documentary?
Yeah. I'll be answering more questions from the chat. I'll bring them up. I'm going to do that later on. So if you feel like I'm ignoring your question, I'm not. I will get to it. I promise. I want to go back to some of these interviews. There are 2 people that you named that I was especially interested in. One being Frank Jacobs. Frank is my favorite writer. Mm-hmm. I would say favorite. Well, maybe he's not my favorite creator overall, but he's up there. He's like in my top 2, I'll say.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to know all about that interview. What was that like? What is his disposition like? I mean, because he seems so learned, and like, I mean, it seemed like he was slumming it at Mad Magazine, to be honest. But you just share your thoughts on that interview with him.
Well, Doug can, if you're still awake, you can chime in and fill in any blanks that I might be missing. So I had reached out to Frank Jacobs when I was approaching anyone who I could to be in the documentary. Mm-hmm. And I had a phone conversation with him. I told him my intentions. I want to interview everyone. I want to do a documentary on the history and influence of Mad. And at the time, he had, I think, always planned to write a follow-up to The Mad World of William M. Gaines, which was his biography on Bill Gaines that he wrote in the early 70s, published in the early 70s. And his answer to me was, I'd rather not interview with you because I want to write that follow-up. Mm. And okay, I understand. And I kind of left it at that. Doug Guilford, I forget the connection of how and who, but he knew a friend, John, who was in touch with Frank and kind of befriended him and helped him out with things. They lived nearby, and he helped, Frank with, things that he needed help with.
Yeah. And
he kind of spoke with Frank and got him interested in it. I talked to Alan. I think this guy's, legit. He's got great intentions. Here's who he's already interviewed, and here who he's got lined up to interview. And Frank agreed.
Yeah.
So we all drove to his condo and set up in his living room, like I was saying. And I asked, I asked the questions I had for him. I know Mad like the back of my hand, and I could ask him specific issue questions. I could ask him, the questions that a quote unquote good documentarian would ask.
Yeah.
And he was terrific. He was very forthright. He was very sincere with his answers. He went, we talked for a good hour, and I'll tell you as far as I'm concerned, one of the best, if not the best, compliment I received from anyone who I've ever spoken to. about this documentary, including the interviews. After the interview, and he said, "You asked the right questions. You're doing this right." And like, well, I'm done. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm turning into a puddle right now, because that was a type of praise from someone who I've looked up to his work forever, like you, and that was a praise that I wasn't expecting. And excellent, you've affirmed everything that I want out of this thing. So that's my Frank Jacobs story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, somebody who is so masterful with words, to have a compliment from him about your questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine that would just be quite a feather in your cap.
It was, and it was just, we turned the camera off, and we all just, were regaled with his stories and portions of his life that he was willing to share with us. And it was great. Once again, I was in interview mode. So I, looking at the questions, and, I think, I don't want to speak for Doug, but I think he had a little more opportunity to be a fan that day. And and he wasn't really doing that, but
I could imagine that, though. Yeah,
I wouldn't put past him. So anyway, Doug, if I'm speaking out of turn on your behalf, I apologize. But I do think you got to, in the moment, be more of the fan. So,
well, I'm very much looking forward to hearing Frank Jacobs' words. That's that'll be the high point for me. That'll be what I'm looking out for.
Yeah.
Now this is the other one that I was curious about is Al Feldstein.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got the sense that there was friction between here, Doug is answering your question. He said, I did that with every interview. So there you go. Is that there was friction between him and Kurtzman. And did that come up at all during the interview? Like that sort of changing of the guard that occurred?
No. And the reason I say it like that, no. One of the things I learned in interviewing some of the folks like Al Feldstein, and I don't say this in any sense of criticism, is that he and his ilk have been telling the story for 50 years, 60 years. Not yet, but about that long, and over that time, like any story, the rough spots get polished out, the good bits get embellished, and somewhere the nitty-gritty gets smoothed over. The story is still there, and it's still how it happened, but the sharp turns aren't as sharp as they used to be. And I don't mean in terms of memory, but I just mean in terms of, any friction and things like that. No, he spoke of Harvey as someone who came in and as Al described it, he was responsible for, bringing Harvey on board as much as Bill Gaines was. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Al wanted to use the opportunity of the interview to set his record straight in terms of how much value and input he had in the Mad legacy. And I'm all for that. And he credited Harvey with coming up. He as the story goes, as far as my interview with him, Al Feldstein suggested, why don't we call this EC's Mad Mag? And he said, and Harvey said, why don't we just call it Mad?
Yeah.
And Al agreed. Yeah, that's we're better off that way. So is that the real story? I don't know if that's the real story. You know, I'm sure Harvey would have had his version of the story, you know, but in this interview, in this telling of the tale, Al told us that way. And I, you know, I have no reason to doubt otherwise.
Yeah.
So, but again, to get back to your main question, no sense of friction from really any of them.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine, you know, as a documentarian, there's like schools of thought within that genre. And you have people who set out to tell a very deliberate story with documentaries, and others who are just like, let's capture it. And it seems like with this, you just want to capture these stories so that we have them. Is that accurate?
There's definitely that. But in the end of the day, as far as the actual documentary goes, we have to craft the mad story.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know, every documentary is from the perspective of that particular filmmaker.
Yeah.
So the truth that I'm telling is through their interviews. And so, you know, however they regale the story is how it gets crafted into the broader documentary. But overall, I wanted to get their stories too. I wanted to document. You know, I years ago, I sat with my grandmother down and just put a camera on her and asked her the family questions. I wanted her story on tape so that future family members could watch it. And I mean, this wasn't the exact same thing, but the concept was the same. I want to get their stories down, and I wanted to let them freely tell it however they, you know, I'm going to ask them specific questions, but yeah. And from there, you know, I took what I needed to tell the mad story and hone it down.
Yeah. Are there any of the idiots that that you were not able to interview that you wish you would have been able to talk to? Is like there any that like really stand out above? I tried to like when
do you mean living and or dead, or just living?
We can do both.
I mean,
yeah.
You know, the goal was to interview as many as possible. So obviously Bill Gaines, obviously Don Martin. Like I said, we missed Bob Clark by mere months. And you and I were talking prior to the going live that, you know, you're a Bob Clark fan. I mean, talk about an unsung mad contributor, because and this is, you know, kind of Joe Raiola talks about this in the movie. He didn't have his own signature monthly showcase. He didn't have a snappy answers to stupid questions. He just illustrated everything that was asked of him. I mean, he's 40% of every issue of Mad. And so, yes, I really, really hurt when missed the chance on interviewing him. Paul Peter Porges, again, we were so close. John Caldwell, we were so close. And you know, Dave Berg, how could you not have wanted to interview him? So just for the sole purpose that I could sit down and go, you know, Stan Hart thought your stuff was pretty late. No, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, who have I not listed that you would have loved to have you know, or if the opportunity arises, you could still get an interview with?
Yeah, I think I guess none come to mind. The one that you named that I think is would have been the most fascinating to hear from would be Porges.
Mm-hmm.
But that's mostly because I'm drawn to his artwork, but also like confused by it and like kind of bewildered by this wild, smudgy style that he has. And also, like, because I mean, he started, I think, as a writer at Mad, and then moved into doing his own cartooning.
Well, kind of like Al Jaffe did. He started off as a writer.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And then, oh yeah, this guy can draw pretty good. We should probably consider using that. Yeah, I could see that, Paul. I mean, Harvey Kurtzman.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
You gotta interview Harvey Kurtzman if you have the chance.
Yeah, or like Will Elder. I mean,
Will Elder. Holy moly, Will Elder. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, in my narrow world of, you know, my world of Mad, when I think of the usual gang of idiots, I think of the names that I rattled off.
Yeah,
and I always find it mind-bending to go on Doug's website and scroll down the list of people who have contributed to Mad, both writers and artists. And oh, yeah, I don't think I can interview all of these people.
Yeah.
I would love to interview these people because they all have their story of you know, their time with Mad, even if it's just one article.
Yeah.
I can't do that. So the names that I rattle off aren't exclusive to who I consider to be worthy of the Mad interview. That's just not the case. It's just expediency. And
yes. So Kyle, quit sending me emails saying, complaining that you weren't interviewed. All right. I can't help you. You didn't make the cut. It's over.
Sorry, Kyle. Sorry.
I want to see if I'm going to revisit some of the comments. If I can find where I left off.
I'm scrolling too. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I'm not checking my Facebook.
Oh, Windy Gaines chiming in with the art studio always smelled like rubber cement. Look at, I always like to keep a little jar of rubber cement on my desk just to.
Was it just to make the day go better for you?
Yeah, whenever I need a snack, you know.
Okay. I'm gonna check out now. Good night, everybody.
Kyle Bridget said, well, when will you start production on the Cracked documentary? During post-production, or will you wait till the release?
What is this Cracked you speak of? I'm not aware of this Cracked thing you talk about. It would be wacko for me to talk about something like Cracked.
Did you?
It would be sick.
Did you ever? What was your view on Cracked as a young Mad reader?
I have a handful of Cracked magazines from when I was a kid, and when you go to the drugstore and you're like, I already got that issue of Mad. Oh, here's a Cracked. I could read that. It was fun. It was good. It had. I mean, John Severin was an illustrator for many years for Cracked, and he got. I don't know if he got his start, but he's an EC Comics artist. He was, so the talent was there. I can't tell you why it was Mad and not Cracked as far as I'm concerned, but that's how it ended up. Yeah.
Well, quality. I think that's.
I mean, yes, you can go to that, but that doesn't take away from the laughs that I did get out of reading a Cracked magazine from time to time. Was it as good? No, it wasn't as good as Mad. The strength in every essence, save for the John Severins, and there were others, Bill Ward, and some good talented artists there. But there's a reason why they were Cracked and not at Mad.
Yeah. I had Mort Todd on, who was the editor-in-chief at Cracked for many years, and it was funny, like the way you described going in and saying, "Oh, I already have that issue of Mad. I'll grab Cracked." During the interview, he said, every once in a while I get people saying that they loved Cracked. They thought it was better than Mad. And no, they didn't. Nobody liked it better than Mad. You bought my magazine when you were out of Mad magazines to read.
That's a man who is comfortable in his shoes and knows where knows where he stands, and that's good on him. I mean, Lou Silverstone, one of the great Mad writers, you know, and during the time when many people would go, that was when Mad was at its best. He went on to be an editor, the editor for Cracked.
Yeah.
And he did it with Bill Gaines' blessing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't speak poorly of Cracked, except no, I'm not making a documentary on Cracked Magazine.
All right. I guess, Kyle, that could be you. That could be, you know, here's
Go for it.
Bradford. This is back when we were talking about Frank Jacobs. I was part of that interview. Best thing I did during college. Watching the interview happen was awesome. I remember him poking fun at Al Pacino's signature before signing My Mad.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. It's a great story. And it's cool that he got to that Bradford got to be there and take in the Frank Jacobs experience. It was great.
Yeah, he got to have that fanboy experience.
Yeah,
that you were robbed.
I would not call it robbed. I was just in another state of mind.
Harvey Esquire, I wonder if he's any relation to Harry North Esquire. Did you interview either Bitsko, Kaputnik, Kazanovsky, or Phone Bone?
I'll tell you, all of them had representation, and all of their agents were basically acting as doorstops. They would not let me in. So no, I didn't get to interview any of those bastards.
Stonewalled at every turn.
I know.
Here we are. Did you say Larry Siegel? I stepped away and having a couple beers.
Well, if you have a few more beers, you won't even remember when I say Larry Siegel now. So does it matter? Does it really matter? Yes, we interviewed Larry Siegel. Loved talking to him. He was fun because he suffered no fools. He just told it what he felt, and that's not to say he burned the house down or anything, but it was refreshing to hear someone not have the polished story like I was talking about Feldstein.
Yeah.
And by polished I mean glossing over any of the rough spots.
Yeah.
Larry just told us his story, and it was fun to listen to.
You interviewed Dick DiBartolo as well, and I'm curious.
Who I told him this. I sorry to interrupt. I just want to say, knowing how much effort, time, and life essence Dick gives to Mad each and every day, to this day, after the interview, I wanted to say it to him, whether or not it had any resonance, for him having, me, who am I, say this to him, but I'm like, you truly are Mad's number one fan.
Yeah. And
I believe that to my very core, that Dick DiBartolo is the number one fan of Mad Magazine.
I think that could be fair to say. Yeah.
Thank goodness for that, because he is just as important as keeping the Mad spirit alive as any one of us schlub fans.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was curious about is like he has like this it seems like a very intense personality. He's he has his own online shows, and he's very savvy in that way. What was the conversation with him like? Because when you talked about Al Feldstein, it's like, this is the story and I've told it a million times. Talking to Dick, did it feel like it was putting on a show, or did you get that same feeling of authenticity that you got from Siegel?
Dick has told the story many times, and the questions I asked him opened the door for him to tell some of the stories that he's told many times. So, but I also really tried my best to get him talking about things that he may not have talked about. I don't know if I was successful in that because the man's been interviewed a billion times about Matt. I will say really quickly to kind of go back to Al Feldstein, one of the cool moments I had in interviewing him, and Doug, you may remember this, the very first interview we did, and this is actually, I think, when I met Doug. I asked Al I was trying to get his take on if at any point while he was editor, did he consider who the audience was and what the things he was putting out, did he ever stop to think about what the resonance was of that? And I don't remember if that was exactly how I worded it or how I put it, but he actually said, he's like, I've never been asked that question before. And I'm like, ding, gold, great. Of course, that's not in the documentary because it didn't answer any of the questions that we had for the documentary, but it was like, okay, it was, and I think he, in a sense, appreciated the fact that he was being asked something. I think all of the usual gang of idiots, upon interviewing them, I really, really tried to stay away from the standard questions that they would be asked for CBS Sunday Morning or 60 Minutes, or I really wanted to get their takes on those things. So the same holds true with Dick DiBartolo. It's, there were many things he told, and that if you were to go on YouTube and look up things, some of the answers are very similar. Yeah. But many things that he answered were I thought fresh takes on things. So yeah.
Yeah. So how as an interviewer, I mean, like when I do these interviews, I get very nervous before them because you're taking your time to have a conversation with me. And I'm, even though it's like really just you and I mean, I can't see anybody. I am like cognizant that there are other people watching this, and they'll remain online and they'll critique me perhaps in some way. When you're crafting these questions and you're sitting down with the people, you have this balance to strike, which is I need the information to tell this story. And I also don't want to be like you talked about, like I have to put my fan part of me aside, and I have to be able to tell this story. So I guess I lost the question that I was about to ask you in my mind. I guess like when you're crafting questions, that's sort of what I was getting at as an interviewer. When you're trying to come up with questions to ask somebody like Frank Jacobs or Jack Davis, where do you start in that process?
What do you mean by where do I start?
Well, I guess so that you avoid that sort of fan instinct of asking questions that perhaps only you have an interest in.
I mean, we're trying to tell the mad story. So obviously those are the questions that you get to as best you can. You never, and this isn't like me giving documentary filmmaking 101, but you never ask a yes/no question. Yeah. You always try to ask a question that forces them to answer in succinct, into an actual cohesive thought. Many times they would answer something that would trigger another question. I'd go in with 40, 50, 60 questions and get to 20 of them because I was able to get them to talk, and their answers would trigger a sidestep that I might not have thought of, or it sidestepped to question 97 that, okay, I can squeeze this in here. And I'll tell you another thing, and it just occurred to me now. One of the great things that helps you get in the correct mindset for interviewing your heroes and not becoming fanboy is to be a film crew of 3 people, and to be the guy responsible for all of it, because nothing gets you out of fanboy mode more than going, I hope to God these record decks are recording. I hope to God the camera guy pushed record on this, and I hope to God there's sound coming through on these discs. So, you know, when you wear all the hats, you don't get to wear the one with the propeller.
Yeah.
And have fun. So, you know, you have a, you know, in every regard, you have that going on too. Right now, you are responsible for this interview and all of your other interviews getting out there. You know, you obviously can't control your internet connection, but you know, you've got to make sure your equipment's working and all that stuff. And I think that helps keep you grounded.
Yeah.
And also extremely nervous.
Yeah. Pivoting slightly now, I did talk about this a little bit. Well, we talked about this privately, but you have what appear to be you have a quite a collection of Mad Magazine back there.
I am a collector. I have been a recovering collector since I was 6 years old. Yes.
Now, I personally, I have a goal. I have one solitary goal, which is all of the Mad regular issues, no super specials, just no double covers. I just want to get one of each, basically. Yeah. What is that? Do you have a collector goal, or are you like so many of us, and me sometimes, I fall into this, picking up whatever Mad things that you come across?
You know, I was just thinking about it the other day, actually. So when Mad had its first Christie, I think it was Christie's auction, selling off the Mad artwork. At the time, I wasn't aware that Russ Cochran, who has, if for those watching don't know, Russ Cochran's a publisher, and he went on to publish reprints of Mad and the whole EC Comics line that Bill Gaines did. At one point, Russ Cochran and Bill Gaines auctioned off a bunch of original Mad artwork, the real early stuff. I wasn't aware of that at the time. So when Christie's announced their auction of Mad art, this was, I think, 1998, it just never occurred to me at the time of like, oh, that's right, Mad comes from artwork and it exists somewhere. I knew that Mad kept it. Yeah. I didn't know that they sold it off. And so, I'm making this long story even longer. I started collecting the original art. To this day, I don't think I have a full run of the American Mad issues. I'm missing a couple here or there, but I got interested in the original artwork.
Yeah.
And I never had enough money to purchase, the Norman Mingos of the world. And so I kind of made it a goal. I want to get at least one piece of art from all the major artists. And so that was kind of my thing. And of course, kind of like what you were saying, in the process of doing this, and what triggered the thought from a couple days ago was, you know what, I've got a ton of artwork that is sitting in this drawer, kind of not too different from how it was at the Mad offices, that I want to get framed.
Yeah.
And framing costs money. And I think I'm going to go take this piece in and get it. Oh, wait a minute. What? There's a new Mad box, something that just came out. Oh, I better go and buy that. And yeah, the new shiny object appears, and you have to go get it. And then the stuff, the artwork, has to wait another day to get framed. So that's ultimately, I need to get some of my artwork framed.
Yeah, you have, what is that behind you, all in the far?
So as I work to that, is a Don Martin, an original Don Martin. Which one is that? That one is called The Bricklayers, It is the joke where the two bricklayers are sitting on the scaffolding, and as they move bricks, the scaffolding, the weight of the one section tilts the scaffolding, and then they quickly move it and tilts the other way. And so then they put all the bricks in the middle, and they're like, okay, we've got this. And then the scaffolding breaks down the middle. So that's that artwork there.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm looking here. I've got Bob Clark here. I do have an original cover. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. This is the part where we get to.
This gets a little kooky here. So there's an original cover.
Yeah.
I do have. This is an iMac here. So there's an original Straight Jacket.
Oh, that's like one of my holy grails that oh man.
There's a pile of garbage and just junk that I need to clean up my room and my office. This is the office where I'm editing the film. And that's just a bookshelf of just a lot of stuff. A lot of things that collects a lot of dust.
Yeah.
But I love it. So
those straight jackets are those are the coolest things ever. You have that nicely framed though.
Yeah, and to those out there who may have a straight jacket, Michael's, go to Michael's and get it's a case for holding jerseys. You know, if you get an autographed hockey jersey or something, it's great. It's like $60.
Nice.
So there's my pro tip.
Do you have something in your collection that you are especially like not that you're especially fond of, that you have like maybe your favorite thing or something that was difficult for you to attain?
I mean, the artwork is always exciting. Long before I had any inkling of the documentary or, having met any of the folks, I went to New York for one of the auctions, the Sotheby's auction, and purchased some artwork and was able to meet for the first time Annie Gaines, and I met Mort Drucker there, and it was just a festive kind of atmosphere, as festive as a stodgy old Sotheby's auction could be. Yeah. But it was just fun because they were selling mad things. They sold that particular auction. They sold Bill Gaines' desk, the actual desk he worked behind for years, and so that was fun. And so the artwork is always a challenge, because there's only one. There's only one of that particular thing. Yeah. And Doug Guilford can attest to this. I think. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but I think one of the things that he is most excited about in his collection, as well as me, is, and I'm looking at it right there, is that unbeknownst to me, I don't know if Doug was aware of it at the time or not, but Sam Viviano had our images put into Mad, into an article at Mad. Really? Artist Anton Emden. A newer UGOI whose work is just so fun. He drew our faces, and we got to be in an issue of Mad. And so Anton sent us prints. Doug has the original art for it. I have a print of it, and I mean,
that's awesome.
What do you do after the good night, everybody? That's it. I was in Mad. Yeah, it wasn't for anything that I wrote, unfortunately. I still have all my rejection letters, but nonetheless, they drew me. I'm in Mad. So.
I think that has to be like a pretty good second place to being published in Mad Magazine.
I wouldn't, if anyone wanted to challenge me on the placing of that, I'd say that's a solid second place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have, hold on. There were a few things. Here we go. This is talking back about Dick DiBartolo. I'm going to say Kyle Bridget makes me laugh a lot, so I like to show his comments. Nuts to this, I'm going to Twitch. Are you not on Twitch anymore? This is Kyle from YouTube. Never mind, I found it. This is Kyle from Facebook.
Hi, Kyle from Facebook.
So yes, thank you for keeping us updated. And I'm very happy to hear that you made it to Twitch via Facebook. I heard Max is looking for an Alfred bust. I don't know what that means.
Who's Max?
I don't know. Who's Harvey? Oh, yeah. I think going back, I did. That reminds me of that guy's last name, Esquire. Harry North Esquire. You got to talk with him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he is somebody, he's like a mystery to me.
How so?
Well, I can't find stuff about him online. Maybe I'm just not good at Googling. But well, one, the fact that he uses Esquire, that that is like confusing to me. But what was I don't know why it's so confusing to me, but I'm just very interested in him.
He was fun. He was terrific. He was a great interview. He's one of those I kind of qualify as like, oh, thank goodness he said yes, because he doesn't know us from Adam, and he was all on board. He came in and sat down with us. So, and again, he's another one, like you said, he's kind of a mystery because he never gets really the love that he deserves for his work at MAD or in general, as far as I'm concerned. But I didn't ask him about the Esquire. I forgot to ask about the Esquire.
All right. Is he British? Well, now everybody's telling me he's British.
Dude's British. Harry North is, I wondered what that funny way of speaking he had. It was like an accent or something. So British. Okay. That clarifies so much now. He told a great story. He told a great story, and I currently have it in the documentary. So here's a little giveaway. He told the story. So Harry North drew the Star Wars parody.
Yeah. Star
Wars. I mean, and I don't know that anyone at the time knew the importance that Star Wars would come to have in American culture, but he got the assignment.
Yeah.
And the story he told us, which I think is amazing, is that he was ill and in the hospital and doing his work. So basically, the Star Wars is, I'm telling it as best I remember, the Star Wars article was drawn from a hospital bed while Harry North was recovering from an illness. And he said, and as he was telling the story, people would come in, nurses, doctors would come in, and he said when he draws, he's very kind of enclosed and sticks to himself, and they would come in, and he was kind of telling it in a joking manner. He kind of crowd in like, no, you can't see what I'm drawing here. And what is the Star Wars you're drawing? I'm not quite sure exactly, but yeah. So.
Well, it's very funny. That sounds like very typical of an artist, that they're hospitalized and they're still.
I don't know where you're going with this, but I'm intrigued.
Well, I just thought,
does it have anything to do with all that rubber cement that's sitting next to your desk?
The artists are like, not always the best treated, especially comic artists, they can be.
To the point of hospitalization?
That they would be, that they're like, no, I still have a deadline. I have to keep working in spite of my hospitalization. So yeah, that's very funny though, that he would still be working on that.
Deadlines are deadlines. You got to get that thing in.
Yeah. And it's not
I'm sure Mort Drucker would be like, I'll take it if you don't have it.
Yeah. Well, and it is funny because, you would think that Mort Drucker would have gotten the assignment, but because, I mean, Star Wars, they had to plan this out ahead of time. So who knows that it will be that mega hit.
Right.
It kind of goes to, like I mentioned very briefly, like.
And I think he was in England at the time.
Oh, okay.
If I remember correctly. He had to go see the film in England, and then, due to unforeseen circumstances, was hospitalized. And yeah,
maybe rubber cement related. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to judge.
No judging.
Alan, I think we're going to wrap up this interview. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. And
a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you for, I'm sure like, Sean Montgomery is very thankful to have that update. That's certainly exciting that it's possible that end of the year might be the moment when we get to see this.
Yeah. So let me, if I could,
Yeah.
if I could get serious here for a moment.
Yeah.
Yes, this film has taken way too long to finish, for many reasons. The biggest being getting these celebrities. The second being getting a production company who could legitimately finish the film and get it out. This film was made on spec, meaning there was nothing lined up after it was done. It was, I got to get these interviews and I got to make this movie. Then we'll get it. We'll sell it. And who wouldn't want to buy it? It's a mad documentary. So for those reasons and more, it has taken way too long. And I can't stress enough how much I feel the weight of that every day. Like I said, I've been editing in front of the editor for 8 hours today. And I feel it. I get it. And I apologize for that. Also, on a side note, I have been hearing from Kickstarter contributors. This is going out to Kickstarter contributors who are watching. I am hearing from them that they are not receiving my updates, which is absurd. That's the whole point of me publishing the updates, so that Kickstarter sends them out to the contributors so they know what's going on. And I don't know the answer to that. I'm trying to work with Kickstarter to figure it out what's going on. And it's not a case of, emails have changed or anything like that. I've asked these people, hey, is this still your email address? Yes, it is. And I haven't received it. When's the last update you received? A couple years ago. I've put out several since. So if you are feeling left out and you haven't heard from me, I don't publish updates terribly often. I'm not good at being one of those, nothing new to say here, which is not a great way of looking. Yes, I know I got to put out things that says, we're still doing this. We're moving ahead. But to not even receive the updates, I get that. And that's not cool at all. And so I try to post on Facebook, and I know people aren't always on Facebook. So we're there. We are doing this. It is happening. Kickstarter contributors will get everything that we've promised them. So thank you for this patience that most of you have shown. Some have not, and I don't blame you for not having that patience. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I can speak only for myself. I've backed a lot of things on like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and like when people are late, like it feels like you're like owning it and like understanding, and like as a consumer, that's what really matters to me. Is like, okay, I've been acknowledged. Thank you.
And you're absolutely right.
And the fact that like this progress is being made, I hope that it only excites the people who have backed your campaign, because it sure as hell excites me. So
good. Yeah. It will happen, and everyone will get everything that they are entitled to for helping make this film possible. Truly. So
and hopefully this is people, please share this video, and people will be able to get this as an update if they have, for whatever reason, not been getting the updates on Kickstarter. But yeah, thank you so much, Alan Bernstein.
Likewise.
I appreciate this. It was a great conversation, and I'm going to remove you from the thing, and I'm going to say a few things to the people. But all right. Thank you. Have a wonderful day,
everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Those of you who are still tuned in, please share this video out. Help spread the word about the updates on this movie. Help spread the word on this channel. Selfishly, that was my real motivation for saying that. But if you have not already, please hit thumbs up on this video. Please share it. Hit subscribe on this channel. If you like Mad Magazine, that's all we do here, Mad Magazine. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Wait a second. I got to get the thing ready so I can say my catchphrase. Toodaloo.